Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the WNPS monthly lecture. Today's speaker is Professor Ajit Dialvis. I'd like to speak a few words about him. In introducing him, I'd like to read a few of the highlights of what has been a stellar academic and professional career. Professor Dialvis did his PhD at the University of Cambridge, UK, after completing his BSc engineering degree at the University of Moratuwa. He also has an MBA from the Postgraduate Institute of Management, or PIM, of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. And he's a recipient of numerous awards, most notable being the Senior Moulton Medal of the Institution of Chemical Engineers, UK. Also a Dankworth Maxwell Award from the University of Cambridge Department of Chemical Engineering for the best PhD thesis. He is also a professor at the Department of Chemical and Process Engineering at the University of Moratuwa. He has served as the chairman of the Engineering Research Unit of the University of Moratuwa from 2005 to 2007. He is a team leader for the Sri Lanka Institute of Nanotechnology from its inception, which was in 2008 till 2011. He is currently the project director of Coordinating Secretariat for Science, Technology and Innovation, or COSTI, Sri Lanka. He is on the governing board and a member of the National Institute of Occupational Health and Safety. This is just, I have shortlisted this, but it is really an impressive long list of achievements. He is on the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. He is a fellow of the National Academy of Sciences, Sri Lanka. He is also the founding president of Sri Lanka Biogas Association of Sri Lanka. He is a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Reading, UK. He is a visiting scientist at the Indian Institute of Science, or IISc, in Bangalore. And he has published many research documents, articles and books and chapters. And he is also a regular columnist on the Daily FT. If you read the Daily FT, you'll see his writing there. And he writes on science, technology and development. And without going on longer, because this is only about 50% of what he has done, I would like to invite Professor Ajit Dialvis to take the podium. It is my great pleasure. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and good evening. First, let me thank the Wildlife and Nature Protection Society for the invitation for the second time on in this particular topic, also for the second time. Right, so it's all about garbage. So I'm pretty sure it's always interesting, this particular topic, and enjoy garbage. I'll try to do my justice to this in presenting it in multicolor. Topic: Colombo keeping its head above waste. This is going to be, it's very much different to the first presentation and I gave some time back here. However, a lot of things have happened. We have had avalanches of waste mountains, and we know there are 260 more of that across the country. And however, it's receiving decent attention and hopefully Colombo. But my advocacy here is trying to push it. Let's be different. And that's a difficult task, but let's be different. And we want to think about this and Colombo to be a different city altogether. And that, of course, is easier said than done. It's easy to tell. But hopefully, let's see whether I can get you buy into this idea. So why I'm putting these Colombo and these two pictures, just to indicate we don't have a big problem. We have a city of a size which we can really transform. Because if you look at Colombo today, and if you look at Paris and Amsterdam of the 18th century, we are having the population of those two cities today here in Colombo. So it's not, because London was a big city. London was a big one, and I'll touch on London a little later, right? So we still have about 8 lakhs of population. The floating population to day-to-day work, then it exceeds 1 million. And it is that type of waste or the environmental management we are talking about. And that should not be difficult. We should be doing it well. We should understand that this is not a big problem. The opportunity for us is we can be very creative in having a 21st century city which actually projects sound environmental management, sound resource management, and we should be sending messages that others can emulate, rather than we showing that we are just trying to follow on to get to find a solution in some one way or the other, and then move on with the rest of the day's work. That should not be the city that I'm thinking about here. This is with respect to the waste. So we know that that particular day, April 14th, while all of us were celebrating, some of us had to face a lot of problems, and it was a matter of life and death. So Meethotamulla collapsed, and because Colombo, we were sending all our waste to this particular place, and nature or the reaction decided on this particular day, at that particular time, to seal the fate of about 33 individuals and disrupt families and a lot of losses. And it sends perhaps shockwaves, because most of us probably realize the impact of what we have been doing after seeing this, because I'm pretty sure in Colombo, some of us were just putting the waste outside, but never knew where the waste that we are putting out are going. And we were kind of immune to the issues, because it's all outside, out of sight, and not much bothered. Today, that day made headlines and continue to today, in some sense, having affected so many people, and yet still doing so. So this is what we were doing, right? We were hanging the garbage in plastic bag and hanging it outside, and you can see from houses the bags being hung outside. And lamppost, CB can get extra income if they actually rent out that particular space, because that's where we use it to place our garbage. And you expect somebody to come in, and we don't pay much rent. I mean, what we pay to the Pradeshya Sabha and Municipal Council is not that significant. I know what I'm paying is not significant to get all these services that we expect from the Pradeshya Sabha, to take the waste and to manage. So this is what has been happening. You just place the waste outside, and you want to get rid of your problem, and hopefully someone is going to solve it for you. But unfortunately, we were just transferring our problem to one particular place, and the magnitude of that impact was very, very significant. What you also notice, this is post Meethotamulla collapse, what you notice is we just seem to throw everything. And all these things about resource conservation, the valuing the waste, recycling, 3R principle, which has been embodied in our national strategy, the national policy for solid waste, which we have been talking to people from the children upwards from schools, we just don't seem to see the results. You walk into Meethotamulla after that, you see the industrial waste being put in, you see all types of waste. And the type of quantities that we have been talking about just get magnified, because everything ends up in that place. And that's what happened. And sometimes you do a lot of other things to get your waste from faraway places to this place too. And that too happened at Meethotamulla. You realized after the event. You can ask the question whether are we the only country to suffer this? Not exactly. Now, considering about 33 people who lost their lives, we have had major incidents of this nature elsewhere. Topping the list is, of course, Philippines, where about 200 plus deaths were recorded in that particular incident. But if you look at from the casualty point of view, Sri Lanka and Mithota Mulla may be the fifth one, right, in as per the number of deaths. And it's always different. Now, in this particular case, in Indonesia, you actually saw burned bodies and the smoke. It's almost like the that mountain was on fire, right? That didn't happen in our case. Ours was a completely different situation. So, ask the question, it's only in developing nations, not exactly again. You have had situations, not very recent, but coming to 1990 plus recent 2000. You have had it in California, you have had it in Ohio, right? And so you have it in Spain. So the most recent from a fast developing economy, you can take the China. And of course, before Mithota Mulla, we had in Ethiopia, right? So, of course, all such instances, but the lives get lost more in our part in economies, not in, let's say, California or in Ohio State. So there's a big difference there. Anyway, so we have to learn the lessons and what to do. And all of us contribute. So this is exactly, you can see it's not buried in garbage. It's again, it's almost like a house on top of another, right? Because it was a different type of a movement, the peat layer. The thing that we did, of course, wrong was putting so much of garbage on top of creating that particular pile of waste. And what was scheduled or recommended was go up to a maximum of 33 meters, but it went beyond 40 plus. And of course, then the force, and then this particular location and the soil really kind of shifted. And there are evidence of people observing when you wake up in the morning, look, that house was not exactly where now today in the morning is different from the place it was yesterday, right? So you can see the kind of movements and of course, and cracks and stuff like that. And that's really was the issue in this particular instance, right? Of course, it's too much of the load and we had the problem. Having looked at waste for a long time, this is not my specialty, this is of interest. So garbage is an interesting subject. So been looking at this purely for trying to get energy out and trying to look at biogas and also to looking at how do you actually make use of your waste as a resource and have a circular economy concept coming into the city and anywhere else, industry and so on. So been writing on this, the biogas as the option, then biogas for Colombo, a climate neutral city, and also recommending that we should not move our waste away from the city. Not an advocate for moving the waste away from the city to an elsewhere, positioning our problem with somebody else's. Even if they're not going to be, there's not many people around there, that's not the way to solve it, right? Because it's a very useful resource, and whether can we make use of it? Because we generate the waste, we are responsible for that, and let's look at a creative way of solutions ourselves, not burdening someone else or somewhere else. So this has been kind of write-ups been doing much more on biogas and Colombo waste and solid waste, etc. I'll try to pick up a few here, right? So something we did almost immediately was trying to do this, demonstrate that in Sri Lanka, in Colombo,
අපි දන්නේ මොනවද මේකේ තියෙන්නේ කියලා. අපි පෙන්වන්න උත්සාහ කරන්නේ මේ අපිට ලැබිච්ච ඇසුරුනුත් එක්ක එකතු කරලා මේ ටික වෙන් කරාම මේකෙන් කොච්චර ප්‍රමාණයක්ද ඇත්තටම එකතු කරලා අපිට එහෙම නැත්නම් ගෙදරින් එළියට දාන්න වෙන්නේ කියලා අවම විදියට.
තෝරගන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා මොන වගේ දේවල්ද කොයි වැනි ස්ථානයකටද ඒව දමන්නේ කියන එක. ඒක තමයි
The objective of this exercise was to demonstrate, because post April 14th, though we lost Mithota Mulla as the place for dumping, every one of us was still generating waste. There's no question of stopping waste. We were not really looking at how do we contribute to this problem or how do we resolve this issue and what role can we as individuals play in reducing waste so that the burden on the government is less. So this was a demonstration that we all can play a strong role, and we just randomly picked because there was a movement by this media house on that let's start from our homes in reducing and contributing to solve the problem. we took a step further by actually collecting some garbage, what we have dumped, what somebody had dumped onto from a truck, and then we collected this and then emptied and kind of analyzed them. We just separated it out to demonstrate that what are we actually throwing out. Now, of course, this is, you cannot average this out across the entire amount of garbage of 700 metric tons per day from Colombo, right? Yet, this gives a picture, what we saw, 95%, actually about 98% was organic waste in this particular 2 packs that we recovered from the trucks. Right? Now, this is big lump. That's all organic. And we can do something about this garbage. This is not a problem. We don't and we should not throw it out. Most of us do have the space.
ඒවා අපිට වෙන විදිහකට පාවිච්චි කිරීම හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා පොල් මුඩු එක. නමුත් මේ ටික ගත්තොත් සමස්තයක් වශයෙන් එක වත්තෙන් ආපු එක්ක අපි කාපු පළතුරු ඉවත දාපු එළවලු තලිච්ච ඒවා මේ සියල්ලම විශේෂයෙන් ගෘහ පරිසරය තුලම කොම්පෝස්ට් කිරීමේ හෝ යම් කිසි ඉස්සරහට ගියොත් ජීව ක්‍රමයට ඔය ඇවිමේ හැකියාව තියෙනවා. දැන් අපි අර බෑග් එකක් දාලා අපි කරේ මෙන්න මේ ටිකත් අපි අර සාමාන්‍ය කුණුකොරට ගෙනිච්ච. මෙතන තමයි වතුර වැඩිපුර තියෙන්නේ. මෙතන තමයි 80%ක් විතර මේවා වතුර තියෙනවා. ඉතින් අර අපි කියන ටොන් 1000 පේනවා ඇති ඒ ටොන් 1000න් විශාල ප්‍රතිශතයක් අපිට අපි හරියට උනන්දුවක් ගත්තොත් ප්‍රතිචක්‍රීකරණයේ හැකියාවක් තමන්ගේ නිවස තුළ කිරීමේ හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා. අපි ඒව එකට දාපු නිසා අපි ගත්තේ ආපහු බෑග් එකේ. අපි දැන් ඔක මූලික වශයෙන් කරද්දී අපි වෙන්වෙන්ව දැම්මනම් අර විදිහටම අර ජරා තත්ත්වය සමානට පේන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ කඩදාසියේම ඒවයි ප්‍රතිචක්‍රීකරණ හැකියාවක් හෝ ඒ වෙන දෙයක් කිරීමේ හැකියාවක් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම තියෙනවා. පෙන්වන්න ඕන කරලා තිබ්බේ අද අර තිබ්බ කුණු බෑග් එක. ඕ වගේ කුණු බෑග් තමයි අපි දකින්නේ ලොරියට ලෝඩ් කරලා ගිහිල්ලා තවත් තැනකට දානවා.
So just indication that we actually generate a lot of waste that we can manage by ourselves. And you don't need mega space, mega garden space. You just need to understand the quantity, and I'll touch on that as well because we do have a small plot and the reduction part possible. One thing you realize is that we do have a very poor recycling infrastructure, right? Our Bothal Patra Kade is not the favorite place you can send a child maybe with material. And so they exist, but you know the picture is so different from this type of picture, where you can see that children can come in, walk in, put something, get some cash, even pocket money, and move out. You get into the habit of valuing something and then understanding the importance of giving it and then getting some also this pocket money. But then internally there is this segregation and separation, and then you actually use it, you transport it, get it across to various parties who can actually benefit from this resource. So this is something we really understand that we lack, and we must contribute to develop. And this can be an activity that private sector can really support in, and how do we get this infrastructure in, right? And connecting to resource recovery operations. What is also interesting is what we have are not it's very ad hoc and not pleasant to work. We talk about in Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, decent work. In this particular sector, we do not have decent work condition. People who are actually engaged in these vehicles, there is a comment, interesting comment, it says I think CMC, that you have it like Air Force, Navy and Army. That is the people who come every day. A lot of people will come occasionally when they feel like, and the rest never come in. That's a flyby. It's the Air Force. Right, I'm referring to the presence of, we don't get about 25% people present. It's not, you don't get 100% people. Workforce arriving to work. And we do have this type of issues because they have not been given due recognition. The waste management is a sector. People expect the service, but people do not look towards, it's not something you interact and say, okay, how they're doing and their welfare, etc. So that too needs attention, and Colombo needs to attend to that. And you also hear very bad practices because Colombo, even though we have a small group community, past times we are quite proud that we had better facilities, toilets, the sanitary systems, and even wastewater treatment from these systems in Sri Lanka. So that's part of it is heritage. But today you hear in sometimes the number of toilets that we have is much less, and they do in turn. I mean, a story is like, okay, you don't go to the toilet, use a plastic bag and put the content onto a canal, right? And then you can understand if somebody is going to work with this type of material and cleaning, it's going to affect so many other people, right? So if you understand the numbers, the facilities that we have to provide, we need to take those numbers into account and move in to provide those services to get the city better, right? It's also respecting the citizens who are inside. The people who probably having suffering because of some issue, or either some resources have not moved in their direction,